How I used my network to launch my new company. I'm Greg, I'm the introverted networker. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you how I leveraged my professional network to launch my new company 6 months ago and how it's taking shape. I've worked in the corporate world for about 27 years, or I did up until last September. And I've always wanted to start my own business and work for myself, but I never really was ready to launch that business. And I probably waited too long, but it was a good thing that I waited because it gave me an opportunity to really grow a network that was going to help me launch this business. So let me tell you a little bit about what I do. I spent most of my career in human resources, and I focused on total rewards, which for those of you who don't know means employee compensation, employee benefits. So I'm the guy who figures out how much of a pay increase you're going to get, what the bonuses are going to look like. I help figure out what medical plans you're going to have in your benefit package, what the 401k looks like. I've done that stuff at companies for years. And so I have a sort of a deep expertise in that. And as I was moving through my career, I got to a place where I was leading a very large team at a very large company, had a lot of responsibility, and my career was going great. It wasn't something that I felt like, hey, I needed to really make a change. And at the same time, I felt like I had kind of topped out, I would say, meaning I didn't really have a desire to move on to the next level, move up in the organization to a bigger role. And at the same time, when you're in an organization, it's really hard to go to your bosses and say, hey, I want to take on a smaller role, or I don't want to lead a team anymore. And that was really it. I didn't really want to be leading a large team because I felt like I was doing a lot of the work around the work, meaning I wasn't really doing the actual total rewards work anymore. I was managing people who were doing it. And that's fine. That's what you do when you're a manager. That's what you do when you're a leader. That when you ascend to a higher level in the corporation, that's what you do. You lead the people who are doing the work, which is fine and is what I wanted to do for about 10 years of my career. But after doing that for 10 to 15 years, I was ready to do something different. And I wanted to get back to some of the work that I had done early in my career. I also wanted to focus a little bit more on employee engagement and retention, which is something I had done earlier in my career. So I ended up launching a new company called Retention and Rewards Partners. And this is my consulting company where I work with large companies to help them with their strategies and their execution of those strategies around employee engagement, retention, and total rewards. And that allows me to really focus on the work I want to do with the clients I want to work with on more of my own terms. So I get to figure out what work I want to do, and I get to figure out kind of when I do it. It gives me a tremendous amount of flexibility in my schedule. Now, launching your own company is hard. Most people who launch their companies don't succeed. And I understand that most companies fail when people go out, and I don't know if I'm going to succeed. But in the first 6 months, I've had 3 different clients that I've worked on who are companies that I enjoy working for, doing work I want to do. And it's been something I've done with zero marketing or even promotion. It's been more than 6 months, and I'm just now announcing this to the people in my newsletter. And so I'm going to do some other things. You'll see some differences from me on LinkedIn. I'm going to post some other content around this topic. I'm going to start another newsletter. Don't worry, I'll still have the introverted network, and I'll be working on that. And I'm just kind of going to go in an additional direction here. So I'm going to continue to do the networking. And actually, the interesting thing is I'm trying to bring all this networking into the engagement and retention conversation. And what I mean by that is I believe that within companies, at least all the ones I've been a part of, that networking internally is what will set you up for success in your career. And as an employer, teaching your employees how to network internally is going to bring you benefits as the employer. That is a sort of counterintuitive idea. I can imagine there's people who work in companies that say, if I teach my employees how to network, they're going to leave. And that may be true. But if that's the case, if you're saying that, then you have problems with your culture, with your workplace. You know people don't want to be there. They're just trying to leave. So if you're somebody who's saying that, I understand. I'm probably not for you. But if you're somebody who thinks, hey, this is a great place to work and I really want people to get the most out of working here, teaching them to network internally is going to only help you as the employer. It's going to help you identify talent. It's going to help people move around the organization, and it's going to make them want to stay with your organization longer because they have other opportunities that they found through networking. And teaching them takes a lot of the burden off of you to help them find those opportunities. You teach them how to find those opportunities within your organization. It also helps you externally. If you've got people who are networking out there and they're talking to people in your industry and sharing what they're doing, people are going to look at your company and go, wow, that's a really great place to work. These people really seem excited about what they're doing. It's also going to help you locate talent. It's going to help you find people because your employees are out networking, finding great talent and bringing them in. So from an employee referral standpoint, it can only help you. So there's huge benefits to teaching your employees how to network. And I want to show companies how to do that so that they improve their engagement and increase their retention. So I'm kind of bringing these worlds together. But let's get back to how my network helped me launch this business, because when I started thinking about doing this, what did I do? I tapped into the network I had. These are people I developed relationships with over the years through my work in total rewards and HR and just networking. And I went out to those people and I was able to ask them, hey, what do you think of this idea? So I was able to pose the idea that I had about starting my own consulting group and said, is there a need for this? Is this something people would want? Is this something people would pay for? So I got a lot of great advice because I reached out to my network and said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? And that only happened because I had developed relationships with these people throughout my networking and throughout my career. So, having that network gave me an automatic sounding board of people that could tell me, hey, that sounds good, or yes, I'd be interested, or, you should go this different direction. So that was helpful. That was number one. So, I always talk about networking for reasons other than finding a job. And that's what most people think of when they think of networking. They think I need a new job. But I always say, and you've heard me say this before, you should be networking for knowledge, for talent, and for career insurance. And I would tuck this situation with my business under the career insurance piece, because I may not be looking for a new job within a company, but this is definitely where my career is going and my network is helping me get there. So tuck it in under career insurance, but I went out and I was able to access people's knowledge by going out and talking to my network. I had these relationships. I had built them up over time. I had kept them going. I reached out to people. I had conversations. I had helped people when I could. I did a good job for a lot of people, helping them. And so they were more than willing to help me when I came and asked them for advice. And I'm still doing this today. I'm still reaching out to my network and saying, hey, I'm thinking about this new idea. Is this something, tell me what you think of this. And I make it extremely easy for them to respond. I mean, this is not hour-long chats all the time. This is, just kind of reach outs via text or email. But it only works because I have those established relationships with them that I've worked on over time to put in place. So let's go some more specific ways my network helped me, because when I decided to make this change, and so there was two pieces of this. I had been thinking about making this change for a while. I'd gone out to my network, and I had said, hey, what do you think of this? And they all seemed to confirm what I thought, which was I could offer my services in total rewards and engagement and retention, and people would be willing to pay me to come help their companies. That confirmation helped me get confident. And then what happened was, at my job that I was at, so this is like, why now? Why did you decide to do this if you were thinking about this all along? At the job I was at, I had been working for the same boss for 5 years, more than 5 years, and in sort of the same sort of organization, and everything was great. As I said before, my job was great at the time. My boss got a different job at the company, and that was exactly what she needed to do for her career development and her career progression. And so she took another job, and I was going to report into somebody new. And I didn't know the person I was going to report into, but I was also at a point where I was like, do I really want to sit here and establish a new relationship with a new person and try to see how that's going to work? Or is this the right time for me to make this move and start something I've been thinking about starting the whole time. So back to the career insurance piece, one of the things with career insurance that I always talk about is you never know when things are going to change at your job. So even if you have a job that you love, the people you're working with are great and everything's going great, you never know when things are going to change. Now, could this new boss have been great? Sure. I really didn't give it a chance because I just said, hey, I'm not really willing to go through that process of establishing that relationship right now. So I'm ready to make the move. I was ready to make it anyway. I probably should have made it regardless of what happened with the change in bosses, but you never know what's going to happen with your boss or your company or anything like that. So you've always got to have that network ready so that you can go do whatever it is you want to do. And so in this case, my network was ready. They had been talking to me and telling me about, their feelings about what I was proposing. And I knew that I had a network of people who were probably close to my ideal customers in terms of consulting that I could reach out to and connect with and propose my services. And so what happened, and this, I hadn't even launched my company yet, but the day I went in and told the new boss, hey, I'm resigning, I'm going to leave the organization, was a Monday. And then on Tuesday, I got a text from somebody in my network who said, hey, do you know somebody who could be a fractional total rewards leader for a company here in Denver? It was like serendipity, right? I mean, it worked out so perfectly because I, number one, had resigned the day before. I was exactly going to do this thing. And this person reached out to me and said, hey, I know of somebody who, or do you know of anybody? And I said, yeah, me. I know. And the person who texted me, they didn't know I had quit. They didn't know I had resigned, but I said, yeah, I just resigned yesterday. I'm available. Let's talk. And that's not always going to happen with networking, but it happens more often than if you don't network. And so I had been networking, and this person knew I was kind of thinking about this fractional total rewards piece. And so this person connected me with a recruiter who connected me with the CHRO of the company that I started becoming the fractional total rewards leader for the last 6 months. And that's kind of been ramping down, but it was a great first project, gave me a lot of experience, gave me a lot of things I could say to future clients, here's what I do. And it only happened because my network knew what I was interested in and what I was doing and reached out. And it just so happened to work. Now, again, that's not always going to happen like that. But again, if you're not networking, it's definitely not going to happen. It's not, those things aren't going to show up. So getting out there, connecting helps position you to take on new opportunities when they pop up. You'll be surprised how many opportunities pop up when you've been out there networking. So that was number one. And then the person who reached out to me actually became client number two because she's the HR leader for another company in town. And so when she knew I was available, because I said, hey, I just quit, she said, oh, great, I have a project for you to work on. So that happened. And then client number three has come about because somebody from the last company I worked at, a couple of people went and worked at a new company, and they were reaching out to some of their former colleagues and said, hey, we need somebody to do some total rewards work. Who do you know? And they said, oh, I just heard, Greg went out and started his own company. You should talk to him. So they got connected that way. So all of my clients so far have come directly from my network, but it only happened because I spent a lot of time establishing who I was, what I do, and talking to people about it and letting them know that I was out there and available. So if you're thinking about launching a business, I would recommend you think really hard about what does your network look like? Do you have people in your network who might be your ideal customer? And if you don't, before you run off and quit your job and start a new company, I would recommend starting to find those people and start to connect with them and talk to them. And you can talk to them from the standpoint of, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think of this idea? And you're not trying to sell them. You're not telling them, hey, will you be a customer? You're just getting their advice. So this would happen, right? If you were to say something like, I'm going to look at my existing network. I'm going to connect with my dormant ties. I'm going to have some conversations with them. I'm going to listen to what they're doing. I'm going to try to help them. And when they say, hey, how can I help you? You say, hey, I am thinking about a company that does X. I would really like to know if you know anybody who is this type of customer. They work at a certain company. They do a certain thing. They're in a certain role. Who do you know that maybe is going to be my ideal customer? And let them introduce you to them. And that's the way to start to find those ideal customers. And then you can start to have the conversations and get their advice and see what they think. Now you get their advice and see what they think, and then you decide, does this make sense? And if it does make sense, then you've already got sort of your first list of people who could potentially become your customers. So that's a way to think about networking, to decide if it's a good time to launch your business, and also to start to build those potential first customers or first contacts that can put you in touch with those first customers. So that was a little bit more about what I'm doing, what I'm launching, what my company looks like, how I got there, how my network helped me. So I hope that gives you some ideas this week as you go out and maybe you're not thinking of starting a company. Maybe you're just looking for a new job, or maybe you just want to grow your network. All of these things work to do any of those things. The steps that I talk about, my 5 steps to create your sort of networking plan that are in my course, that I talk about in all my newsletters, that I talk about in my book, that I talk about on LinkedIn. All of it is the same. It works, again, whether you need a new job, or you're trying to start a new company, or you just want to grow your network for your career insurance. So go out, try some of that stuff out. Have a great week. Remember, always be connecting.